Tyler. We are ready to party.
They're classy too, man. I can wear this on a date.
People who are most successful are the ones who don't just give up.
Top Bin 90 is proud to welcome the Olszynski Law Firm as an official sponsor. With 2 locations in Charlotte and Concord, the Olszynski Law Firm specializes in personal injuries, criminal defense, DUIs, workers' compensation, and much, much more. With over 12 years practicing law, the Olszynski Law Firm makes it a priority to treat each client with the focused and dedicated representation that they need. For a free consultation in English or in Spanish, give them a call today.
Hi, my name is Justin Olszynski, managing partner of the Olszynski Law Firm, inaugural season ticket holder. Just here to let you know that our law firm, the Olszynski Law Firm, has you covered. We cover criminal law, family law, workers' compensation, personal injury. We're here to support you in your time of need. Give us a call.
Hello, and welcome to an all-new episode of the MLS Corner, the best corner in all of MLS. We've been absent for the last 2 weeks, kind of like Charlotte FC the last couple of weeks. We've got a great show tonight. I got my man Bam Maurer Media. Brian, how are you tonight, bro?
Doing pretty well, man. Doing pretty well. I feel like I haven't been on in like a month, so I'm rearing to go tonight.
Oh yeah, we've got a lot to talk about. My man David from the Yeti Clan, how are you, bro?
I'm good. Always an honor to be on the show, baby.
I appreciate it, man. I mean, how is it being a capo when the team rarely wins?
It's tough. It's tough, man. It's not an easy job. But at the end of the day, I don't look at it like my job to make everyone happy. I do what I can do, and that's it.
But it's been a party. It has been a party, but it's been one of those parties where you go and it's just a whole bunch of dudes and like 2 girls. It's kind of like upsetting. That's the kind of party that I've seen, Charlotte. It's either that or those parties that get overhyped and you show up and it's like somebody and their mom there.
What?
So that's the type of parties that we've been attending. A lot of hype and not a lot of delivery. We're going to go into it today. We're going to talk a little bit about Philadelphia Union. We'll talk about FC Cincinnati. And we'll look ahead at New England with Charlotte. 5 more games remaining in this season, right? I mean, it has come pretty fast. And unfortunately, there are more lows this season than there are highs. Hopefully, by some miracle, maybe, just maybe, we might make playoffs. I mean, I doubt it at this point, but we'll see. Let's start off with last Wednesday, I believe it was, where Charlotte drew 2-2 with Philadelphia Union, one of the toughest teams in MLS. We knew it was going to be a tough game. We knew, what Philly come to do, an aggressive team. They're going to give us the ball, and we're going to have to find a way. And for 96 minutes, we found that way. We found that way with a beautiful goal from Justin Merrim. We found that way with a goal from Karol Swiderski, a 2-0 lead. And like every Charlotte FC fan knows, a lead for this team means absolutely nothing because they somehow find a way to mess it up. And guess what? They found a way this weekend, last Wednesday, to mess it up. 2-1. First of all, I got to complain about this ref because 7 minutes was crazy, right? Second, it had been over those 7 minutes. But unfortunately, right, nobody can, what was Breck doing? What kind of a challenge is that? This man came in with all these expectations, right? Bro, you don't have to help us win in this match, but don't help us not win. Brian, what did you make about that Philadelphia game?
Yeah, honestly, even with how good Philly is, I honestly expected Charlotte FC to pull this one out going into the game. It reminded me a lot of where Charlotte was at last year when they were playing Philly at home. And I don't know, for some reason, I was like going into it thinking we've got a chance to like this be the moment where the season really turns around, where Latanzio really like flips the script for a lot of the fans. And that's kind of what I was feeling like the game was going to be. It felt like one of those games where people maybe expectations are down and they have a tough opponent coming up. And that's when like Charlotte kind of shows up a lot of the time. I've noticed that just throughout the last 2 years is like they show up in these moments and then they go up 2-0, a lot of solid control. And I was like, man, this is exactly, honestly, kind of how I was hoping this game was going to go, and kind of had a slight bit of expectation on that it was going to go that way until just capitulated. I mean, it was just like, if you look back and just how much control they had of the ball, and really just didn't look like Philadelphia was pulling that, had that much of a threat for that first 60 minutes against Charlotte. Really dominant. I really felt like that was one of the more dominant 60 minutes Charlotte played. It was just, they only played a dominant 60 and there was still 30 left. And that's where things kind of really went sideways. I wanted to be really surprised. I know Bender was hurt this last game, but I was surprised Diakite got the start after that moment he had in that. I mean, that was one of the worst situational tackles I maybe have ever seen, just to lose both the marker and just the moment in that situation, to completely lose your way and make that kind of tackle. Again, it's like, I feel like it's happened multiple times with the veterans. Like Byrne has happened to twice, and now Diakite. So these veteran signings they've made have allowed these last minute PKs, and for me, that's also a huge red flag.
For sure. And I mean, to be honest with you, prior to this Cincy game, I had seen some improvement in this team, right? It looked like they could pull something off, right? Yep. And unfortunately, I remember early on in the season, I asked Ashley Westwood, right, what are some of the things you want to implement into this team? And he said it's the ability to get things over the line. Yeah. And unfortunately, we have not seen that. From the very first game, minute 89 against New England Revolution, who were playing again, ironically, this weekend, right? I mean, we gave up that 0-0 and lost those 3 points right at the beginning, near stoppage time. Fast forward to now, we were complaining about 5 draws in a row, and they said, all right, y'all don't want draws? Well, here's this big L for you, Yeti, talk to me about what you saw from Charlotte, specifically against Philadelphia Union.
To be honest, I thought we were going to pull out and get this win against Philadelphia. We had more possession. We looked like the better team for a total about maybe 75 minutes, in my opinion, but we just can't close out a match. Once it gets to those last 15 minutes of the match, we look tired, we lose focus, or it always comes down to an individual mistake that costs us the game. And our back line continues to be an issue, not only in that – it wasn't our back line that game. It was unfortunately the Yagade who came up with that stupid foul. But moving on to the Cincy game, our back line was a huge problem throughout that game. But going back to the Philly game, it's ridiculous being the better team on the field, having more possession, having more passes, having more passing accuracy. Plus, we had 7 corners in that match that we did not take advantage of. Yep. It's not good enough.
It's not good enough. And someone made a great comment here. Our DPs don't compare to others around the league. That's a very true statement. 1, and 2, in the game against Philadelphia, let's stick with that one. Enzo comes out. Carroll comes out. Camille doesn't start, right? Our 3 DPs, our players that are supposed to be making the difference. 1, we have what I think pretty much is 2 9s now, because this is what Carroll said. He wants to play the 9 role. Those are his words, not ours, right? So we have 2 DPs on the field who aren't producing to the level that they should, right? In my opinion, Carroll has done enough. Obviously, he hasn't been great the last couple of weeks, but I still think he's a good DP. Enzo has been Enzo this season, right? And then Camille had a stint where he played well, but it hasn't been good enough from all 3 of them. And we have to hold these guys accountable. Just like I'm holding Breck accountable, taking the number 10 jersey and wanting to be a difference maker. He needs to be a difference maker, but not in the way where you lose his points. It has to be a difference maker in a way where we're going to win games Brian, talk to us about, I guess, our DPs and that low expectation from them now, because I mean they haven't produced.
Yeah, I think, and I feel like we've talked about Carroll being like a key guy that we've like kind of have to have in the lineup at all times because of his technical ability. But like now I've been looking back, and I'm glad you brought this up because I looked back at some of his stats compared to how he is goal contribution wise compared to a lot of the other DPs and just other players in MLS. And so far this year, he ranks 27th in goal contributions and 33rd last year in goal contributions in all of MLS. That means like almost every team on average has a player that contributes more goals than Carroll. And so like, I don't know at this point if we can say now that we've seen almost 2 seasons of him, if he has to be on the field. Now, does that mean there's other players that can be on the field and do it? But it's just like, I don't know, man. It's just, I'm almost at a point where I'm intrigued by just seeing Ajiman get a shot and just see what we have from him the rest of the way, just because of how little we've seen from our DPs. I'd rather see what our super Duncan McGuire has as many goal contributions, the super draft pick for Orlando City, as Carroll has this year. He's their first round pick.
That's crazy.
So like I'm down, and they also got rid of their DP to give room for him to then be their guy.
Yep.
So I'm intrigued by that's honestly right now. That's for me is the most interesting thought. Is just I'd like to see we're on a long shot to get in the playoffs. Let's see what else we have because we know what Carroll brings, and it's like it hasn't been a winning mentality. Like it hasn't been enough. He had the one moment I feel like in Chicago where he really took that game over and came back and won. But I don't know if I can say there's another game where it's like, wow. Oh, maybe New England and Cincinnati at the beginning of last year, those home games too. But like not consistently enough, right? I don't feel like he's taken over a game the way like we saw Lucho do against us on Saturday, where he's just like, oh, you can't stop that. Like you can't stop him. Like he's
how much though do you blame Karol Swiderski?
Yeah.
And how much do you blame the coaching where, I mean, the guy's been playing the 10 role, the guy's been playing the 9, the guy's been playing right wing, a mixture of the 8 sometimes. Like how much can you expect from a guy, one, who's been played multiple times out of, I guess, his natural position, and 2, who gets subbed off very, very often?
Yeah. I think it's a combination, right? I think it's maybe the mistakes in terms of the front office bringing in the guy who kind of like throughout his career has kind of needed supporting role players around him to help bring out both the best of him and the other, the best out of the other players around him. And so they maybe didn't get all those other pieces quite right to fit in alongside him. And then on top of that, I think there has just been a lot of figuring things out. I mean, I think this also trickles back to the Mar signing and firing, because Carroll was a Mar era signing. So then you have, I mean, it just all kind of trickles down from there. But I mean, at the end of the day, the players are all on the field, and he's definitely like, I mean, he was signed for $5 million plus, right? Transfer fee. Like you're at the ability in this league and at this level to take over a game. If you're a $5 million transfer fee, I mean, there's players that are taking over games that were sold. I mean, Hani Mukhtar was nowhere near a $5 million transfer fee, and he's dominating this league, right? So there's like, that expectation is that you can take control, I would say, for those kind of transfer fees, 5 to 10 million range. I mean, look at Cucho at 10 million. He's dominating. So like, it's just at that price range, the expectation is that amount of money is enough to where you should be able to maybe, even if things aren't working out your way in terms of positioning and all that, the other technical ability and the level you are at compared to what many of the other players are in and across this league, you should still be able to stand out more often. I mean, and if not, then I mean, but again, it is not also all on him, but I think it's just a combination of all three, right? I think it's front office, manager, and player, and then this is what you get. But it shines the brightest on this Carroll situation in terms of all three kind of being out of sync.
Yeah, but I think it also highlights the lack of roster build in the squad now. I mean, I said this at the beginning of the season, and we talked about this with David, right, early on, where we talked about, you know what, I can be patient. I can wait 10, 15, 20 games to see what we're actually producing. We're 30 games in now. 13th out of 15th is not good enough, right? Which none of our DPs have over 10 goals this season, right, in MLS. That's not good enough, right? Our U22 player isn't producing to the level of a U22 player in Kerwin Vargas. The other one we've seen twice this season, right? And part of that's been because of the fallout with the coaching staff, right? So these players that are supposed to be coming in and making a difference are not making a true difference, right? So you have to put that blame on the front office and on the coaching staff because you guys have not gotten it right with these signings, right? If also your quote unquote least worst DP, right, in Karol Swiderski is talking about wanting to leave. So we don't have productive DPs to the level that they should produce. And your best one wants to leave. The other one was rumored with Cruz Azul, right? The other one came in injured, right? So there's a lot of criticism that needs to go back into this front office when you look at also like at teams like St. Louis, top of the West, you know, they've clinched their playoff spot and they're going to say, you know, well, they had a whole extra year to get ready, right? We had a whole extra year to prepare as well with COVID, right? We're 3 years into this now, right? 2 really playing, but 3 with in terms of being able to build something, and we still don't know what we have. We still do not have a competitive team that can beat teams. I know Latanzio said we haven't lost in those 9 games, but at the same time, we haven't won them either, right? So, I mean, I get what you're saying, but, you know, the production is there. 13th out of 15th is not good enough. David, anything you want to add to that about the roster build?
Yeah, I mean, I've said it multiple times, dude. There's no chemistry. It's literally like anytime we get a signing, and I hate to say it like this because some of them have been good, some not so good, but it's literally we get what we can get, and that's it. And there's no technical build to it. We saw some technical build when we brought Ashley Westwood in, but honestly, other than that, that's about it. Maybe we can see it here in maybe in the future with Jere Urnen and Brek de Jagere, but so far I haven't seen it. It's like you said, it's not been good enough.
Yeah, for sure. And Benny mentioned we did sack our manager 10 games into the season. So here's the thing. The way last season ended, we did not finish in playoffs, but to a degree, it was acceptable because you know what? The team finished with a fight. They finished right outside. We were there till the end of the season. So there was very little to complain about, in my opinion, right? You know, where you're like, you know what? The coaching changes, you know, it's Latanzio, you know, he's only been head coach for a couple of months. You know what? There was an energy to the team that we're not seeing this season, right? So to a degree, you can accept it. Now I can accept that. You're 30 games in, your true transfer window's in, and you're 13th. You're worse than you were last year with better players. And that to me is a problem. Brian.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And I actually had another point to make about like the mentality of the overall, like the team. So for an example, we just played FC Cincinnati, right? They had a DP striker this whole season up until the summer, Brenner, right? $13 million transfer fee, really showed out last year. He was also mentally in Europe, like just like I'm ready to be signed and move to Europe. And they're like, okay, we can't get you until the summer. He's like, all right, yeah, but like he wasn't mentally there. They benched him. They benched their biggest transfer fee in history for the whole like spring and summer. They were like, okay, we'll play Sergio Santos, and I think Sergio Santos was the main guy, and then Dominic Baggi were like the 2 other strikers they opted for instead of him, instead of their DP striker, and they were able to make it work. But also, it's just the mentality thing of like he's not mentally here anymore, and we're ready to move on and figure out a way past that. And I think that's another thing that maybe is lacking in Charlotte is like, and maybe that's because Karol in January was like, I'm ready to win something in Charlotte, and now he's like, I'm ready to be in Europe. And so obviously that's a huge flip on his part. But at the same time, as an organization, when that happens, if a player is coming out and saying that publicly, there needs to be also the mental switch of like, what's our next man up? What's our like change of course situation for that? Cincinnati was well prepared for that. They had 2 strikers ready to go to fill that spot, and then signed another DP in the summer ready to fill that spot, Bopenza, who we just saw, and he put in a banger this last weekend as well. So like that's also, I think, the mentality that's missing is like, how do we find those replacements and that preparation for the next phase and the next phase and the next phase? Or when a guy's like, I'm done, I'm kind of thinking somewhere else. All right, cool, fine. We have another plan. Not like, well, we're going to just play him and ride him out because we don't have another option, which is kind of where Charlotte is also at. And I think that plays into the mentality of the entire thing. If I'm a teammate and who's like, or think of Ajiman specifically, got drafted, grinding at Crown Legacy, showed up, looked good, fans love him, everybody's about him. And then he sees like Carroll's like talking about wanting to leave. And he's like, dude, I want to be here. Like, I'm ready, right? So I don't know. That's another mentality piece that I've been thinking about lately, especially because we just played Cincinnati and they literally just went through that situation earlier this year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, also add in there, right, that like it is really, really frustrating, right, what people are saying too about, Latanzio continuously mentioning that we aren't Real Madrid. I think that's a very wrong approach. One time, okay, I get it. Twice, you start to annoy people. Yeah. 4 or 5 times, somebody requoted our tweet. I forgot to retweet it, but they screenshotted every time that Latanzio mentioned Real Madrid, and it was like 4 times.
Yeah.
Right? So with that being said, right, like that's really the wrong approach to take when your team isn't winning, right? If we were like, winning consistently and then we lost one, okay, you could say we're not Real Madrid. You know what I'm saying? I can feel if it was 9 wins on the bounce and 1 loss and 1 draw, if you say, I'm like, I get you. But with 9 draws, 2 wins in 15 matches, that's a very wrong approach to take, right? And people are taking that and running with it, right? David, why aren't we Real Madrid?
Because we can't close out a match. Well, I don't know. We look like Real Madrid this past weekend, though. I'm not gonna lie.
For real, they lost 3-1.
In Real Madrid's defense, Atletico played out of their boots. Everybody played amazing that game. That was a good game. But going back to Charlotte, man, it's just we can't close out matches, and it's just continued to be a problem within our back line. We lose focus, lapse of concentrations, or individual mistakes. That's what has costed us. And Latanzio, time and time again, has been afraid to maybe admit that and put some blame and put some responsibility on his players. Like, I feel like it's time for him to actually, like, maybe point his fingers to a couple players and be like, it needs to be a little bit better here, or it needs to be a little bit better here. Yes, overall, we've seen an improvement, but we haven't seen improvements in spots that we need to see improvements overall.
For sure. I agree with you 100%. All right, let's move on. So after 5 draws on the bounce, we take a slapping to in Cincinnati. The real Queen City stood up, unfortunately, that game, and that was Cincinnati. I mean, we had no answers. I think our first shot on target or our first shot came in at 60 or 70, right? I mean, here's the thing. When we go up 2-0, we're afraid. When we see other teams go up 2-0, we know the game is over. And it was over, especially seeing how Lucho just ran through our entire defense, nutmegging Malanda in his goal, passing Nathan Byrne, just absolutely cooking Privet and scoring arguably one of the best goals this season. I've seen that goal like 6-7 times on different accounts now.
Bro, Bleacher Report put that goal up.
Yeah, exactly. And in typical Charlotte fashion, anytime we make some sort of national or big account, it's either for a Mickey Mouse voice, Miguel saying something crazy, our team getting cooked, Zoran saying something that's out of pocket. It's never anything good. Right? Talk to me about this Cincinnati game, David.
You know what's crazy about this game? We also had more possession than Cincinnati this game, which is mind-boggling. We also had 9 shots on target. I mean, not on target. 9 shots, 0 on target, with our first chance of the match coming around the 60th minute. Ridiculous. Not good enough. from the very beginning, I think maybe it was like the 4th or 5th minute, Cincinnati was already on us. They should have scored. We fast forward 10 minutes later, Lucho Costa about scores a bike. We had no good chances. We looked lethargic. We had nothing going for us that game. It was not a good game for Charlotte at all.
Yeah, and Brian, this is where I kind of get back to where's that energy that we saw in Philadelphia at home, right? Where's that energy that we saw at NYCFC away at the end of the season? Where is that spirit that we saw in Chicago where we were able to pull out that last minute win, right? I'm not seeing that here near the end. I'm seeing a deflated team that once they get scored on, it's done. Like, if you get scored on away, we're done. Like, we're not coming back.
Yeah, and that was like not how it was near the beginning of the season, right? I recall like Toronto FC. We're in Toronto, and there's a crazy windy game. They give up those 2 crazy like corner kick goals from Bernadette. One of them from Bernadeschi. I think they gave up another wild goal. But it was like they're down 2-0, and they come back and tie it 2-2. They were able, like, I feel like early in the season there was a little bit more fight to this team, and the way they were willing to kind of come back and get a result. Especially on the road, which I think was something that was enthusiastic, at least, and encouraging for me and for, I think, a lot of fans, especially with the road points that we're getting. But now it just doesn't seem like it's there at all. It seems like tired legs, similar to where they were at during that stretch last year against like Miami on the road and LAFC on the road, just where they just had no way back into it. Like you said, 0 shots on target. And since he had as many shots on target as Charlotte had total shots. So it was just, and with, like you said, tons of 60-40 in terms of possession. So Charlotte did everything that Lattanzio kind of wants them to do in terms of dominating the ball, controlling the ball, getting lots of passes, especially in the attacking half and the final third, but just no teeth to it. And what ends up happening, especially with how he plays with that high line, it plays right into Cincinnati's favor because they're a counter-pressing team that really like can attack you quickly. Like as you saw with Lucho Acosta specifically, when he pulls the strings, his just processing speed is so fast, and he can make really sound decisions quickly. It just really played right into their hands. And when they don't have to respect, like I don't think teams are having to respect Charlotte FC's attack at all. And so they're like, oh, cool, bring up 9 guys. Who cares? You're literally not doing anything with the ball. So we'll just wait you out, make a mistake, and then you've got Malanda v. everyone. So and like that's kind of been the playbook, I feel like, for the last few games. I mean, that was definitely looked like that was the playbook in this one. Just whenever Cincy had the ball, they were able to move up the field quickly and get shots on target and really take control. And then that was also, I feel like, kind of what happened towards near the end of last game against Philly as well, was just they never switched gears from continuing to play Lattanzio style of high pressing and being aggressive, and they kind of just allow goals in behind. I mean, you're going to allow them, especially if teams aren't fully respecting what you're bringing forth in your pressure and in your aggression and in your attack.
For sure. This is a good point, too, and I want to touch on a little bit on this as well. We have 79 yellow cards this season, not including the ones our bench has gotten, right? And we're the team that has allowed the most goals in MLS so far. I think we're tied with LA Galaxy, who's also not doing so hot, right? What does that tell you about this team, Brian?
They're scrambling, right? So that means there's a lot of guys out of position trying to recover quickly, doing what Diakhere did on the penalty, right? Where they're like, oh, God, the guy got behind my back shoulder. Now I have to try to recover. I make a sloppy play, and it's a yellow because they've gotten in behind you, and now you're recovering, and now you've let a guy play in behind, and you've got to stop him to just prevent the chance. And, that's a yellow every time. And I feel like to some respect, that's we're probably gonna get a decent amount of yellows, even if this style of play ends up being what Charlotte can use and win with. I think they're still gonna, because like I said, I mean, it's a high aggressive line. High aggressive lines means you're gonna give up chances in behind because you're allowing the space to be there. So you are going to give up yellows from time to time. But I think just the quantity of them this year is just showing that they're scrambling a lot. You're seeing Derek Jones pick up I think he's been suspended twice already this year. And Bronico got suspended at least once or twice last year as the 6th. So that 6th role, that defensive midfield position, picks up a lot of yellows in this system. But it's also just been several other players around the 6 as well. Just, I think, a lot of scrambling and dealing with 1v1s. I mean, that's also what happens with yellows. You're dealing with counterattacks that are, getting by you. That's where the yellows generally add up. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, you're muted.
My bad. I want to touch on a couple of things too. The fans are bringing up some great points today, and like you are as well. I want to talk a little bit about that CB pairing between Privet and Malanda. Is that, David, is that our best center back pairing? I mean, obviously we saw Privet make some mistakes this week, and I understand that Lattanzio wants that hybrid in that center back, but is that worth benching an experienced center back like Guzman Corujo or another experienced guy like Toloma, who, we haven't even seen these guys. Jan Sobocinski, I don't even know if he's in Charlotte, So is that our best center back pairing? And I'll start off with you, David. And I want to hear from everybody in the comment section as well.
This season, yes. And it has been because we're working with what we got. Tuiloma hasn't played to expectations. If anything, he's been a liability, if anything. Corujo, unfortunately, got hurt, came back. Everybody was excited. Then he said that he wants to leave or something like that. He doesn't want to be here, so that's why we haven't seen him. Sobocinski, forget about it. I'm not a fan. My nickname for him is No Pay Sobocinski, so we'll just forget about that one. But so far this season, yes, Privet and Malanda have proven to be our best center back pairing. Privet showing that he wants to play, has that passion, has a fire. Malanda just stepping up to the plate and finally realizing that he has to be that leadership role in the back line, because at the beginning of the season, we saw a lot of mistakes and stuff from Malanda, but that was because he thought he could let that happen. It was up to him to step up, be that leader in the back line, and he's finally realizing that.
Yeah, my only issue with that, though, is these guys are 20 and 21, or like very, very young, right? Obviously, you saw that inexperience in Cincinnati, right? Brian, your thoughts on our center back pairings?
Yeah, I'm not going to boil it down to just this one game, because this last game is the MVP versus a 3rd-round draft pick, right? So that's the difference in quality that you're dealing with in this specific one-off game. Before this game, I would say Privet and Malanda, since the Leagues Cup and even during the Leagues Cup, really seemed like a solid pairing for this team, and seemed like a refreshing change. It was an aggressive move by Lattanzio to go into the Leagues Cup where they needed to try to find some momentum, and he put in the 3rd-round draft pick in his first starts, and I think that's extremely ambitious, and I think it did pay off, overall, so far up until this game. I think what didn't pay off about this game specifically, and why it makes Privet look so bad, is because they didn't get the results against Philly. They didn't get the results against DC. And so when you don't get those wins at home, you're desperate for the points now on the road against a team that has only lost one time at home all season. And so if you're dealing with that situation, it's just it's a lose-lose situation. And super low probability. It puts Privet up against the wall. So really the results had to be, if we're talking about a win against Philly or a win against DC, we're giving Privet the benefit of the doubt in this loss. But the issue is he looks extra bad because we're desperate for the points. Right?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Against the toughest team. They're walking away with the supporter shield right now. Their record at home is 13-1-1.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. Imagine if we closed out Nashville and we closed out Philly, right? Yep. That would have been an extra 4 points. We go into this game with the expectation if we lose, it's in the books to lose this one. Yep. The problem, like you mentioned, and it's a great point, is we're going in here with need. Yep. And when you go in with need and you don't see even the team fight for it, it frustrates you even more. Yep. Right? And then our last 2 wins come from LA Galaxy, which was May 27th. May 27th. and LAFC August 26th, I think it was.
Yeah.
Right? So I mean, that's 2 wins in 15 MLS games. Not good enough, right? I mean, we can understand to a degree the problems that the team has been going through, but when 60% of MLS makes playoffs in the East and we're not even there, how many times have we been in the playoff position this season? Maybe once or twice, 2 match days?
Twice.
2 match days.
Where'd those balloons come from, yo?
Yeah.
What the world?
I thought that was you, bro.
Bro, I threw up the peace sign and then balloons came. I'm gonna do that again.
Bro, I thought I was seeing stuff. I was like, this team's got me delusional.
Dave was super excited about those times
Happy
when they were in the playoff
birthday.
position.
What the world, bro? Oh,
Twice.
crazy.
Yeah, I love that. Twice. Yeah. All right, man. Everybody's coming up with some really good stuff in the chat. All right, now let's talk a little bit also about the wingers of choice. So what it looks like right now as well, right? It looks like when healthy, we're gonna see Ben and Brecht on the wings, right? In that 4-3-3, you've got Enzo up top, and when these guys have been healthy, it's been Ben and Brecht. Mind you, 2 players, one, in Ben, who to me is more of that 8 and 10 role, and also Brecht, who's more of that creative role, right? You're sticking these guys out wide, preferring them. So not natural wingers per se, instead of guys like Kerwin Vargas, instead of guys like Kamil Yazviak, instead of guys like Mackenzie Gaines. Here's what this tells me. One, the wingers that we have aren't good enough or aren't producing to the level that they should, right? Which, again, who does that fall back on? That falls back on the buildup of this roster where they cannot get their wingers right. And 2, right, if these guys are starting for us, right, then it's going to take some time to see the best version of him on the wing. We still haven't seen that, right? Same thing with Brecht. There's been a lot of positives that I like from Brecht, but to me, he should be playing more of that 10 role. But then again, if you put him in that role, where the hell does Carol Swiderski go? Again, it is just a confusing lineup, a confusing. I'm just confused in terms of what we're trying to do overall. Brian, what do you make of this winger pairing from Lattanzio? And I want to hear from everybody in the comments section as well.
My speculation on it is that these are more like Lattanzio all season has talked about characteristics, right? And I feel like Ben and Brecht, for some reason, those are winger characteristics that he wants out there, because Vargas, Gaines, and Uzviak were all players that were signed during the Mar era. That's the only thing I can see as to why you would sign a midfielder and then immediately start playing him on the wing when you signed him in the summer as an attacking midfielder like Brecht. And so that's the only thing I can really think of is the Brecht signing was a move where he was like, look, okay, I want to start putting like Ben and Brecht have the characteristics that he wants on the wing. They're different than what Mar had wanted. And the 3 other guys you named were all Mar guys. They were pacey, fast, like sort of creative 1v1. Like Vargas is, I would say, probably technically like maybe the more creative of the 3 in terms of just taking players on 1v1 when he was at his best. But like that's kind of like, I don't know, Mar characteristics. That's the only thing I can speculate as to why you would do that at this point, making this change now with like 10 games to go. Is that Lattanzio finally got sort of like the winger pairing that he wanted with the Brecht signing, and he was like, okay, now I can finally put, I guess, Brecht and Ben out there. That's the only thing I can think of. I don't understand why else to do it at this stage when you're kind of desperate for points, to put Ben in a new position when he hadn't been really earning regular minutes. I think a lot of people, me included, had been shouting for him to get some more minutes, because when he was coming in off the bench, he looked like he had definitely grown into himself from last year. And so, but like you said, it definitely hasn't like looked super comfortable out there yet. But again, he's a young player playing in now a new position at the pro level, where I feel like he was just sort of coming into his own as a midfielder this season. I feel like last year there were definitely times when he was a little bit behind the pace in terms of just the physicality of the league and being able to hold on to the ball and possess it well and move the ball forward. This year, I think he's been a bit stronger there, but then he got moved to the wing, and now he's doing a whole new set of things.
For sure. And this is a great point by Carl, by the way. How many times this season have we said X player is not at his natural position?
Yeah.
You know what? One thing that early on I liked about Latanzio was that he was very gutsy with trying players in positions, right? At a point, it's good if it works. If it's not working and we're not seeing a result, criticism comes into play and you have to criticize, right? David, what do you make about this winger pairing?
I'm not a fan. I don't like Bender as a winger because to me, he just seems a little bit lost. He gets dragged into positions that he shouldn't be, that he feels he needs to be in, but in reality, it just hurts us in the end. To be honest, I don't see why we don't trust Vargas for a start. Breck goes out and makes a terrible tackle at the end to cost us a game, and we reward him with a start against Cincy. That's what I don't get. So I feel like there's players that could do better here and there, but when it comes time for their time to shine, they don't do it because they feel like they deserve to be the one starting. They feel a little disrespected, I feel.
Yeah, for sure. Also, this is a good point too. What happened to Scott Arfield? Why does he seem to be the bench? Our hottest players, right? I mean, honestly, at this point, give that man a start, right? I was debating in the past, like, okay, like he's coming on and being effective, but right, I want him from the get-go now, right? Here's an opinion that I have that may be a little bit unpopular, but I think most of the signings this season have been right? Like they've been effective. Yet it looks like a good player. Scott's been a good player. Ashley Westwood has been a good player for us. Enzo, RDP, is the one that's maybe on that 50-50 side where, like, he hasn't been producing enough. But we've gotten a lot of players right. Unfortunately, right, it's been a mixture of not playing them in the right positions, messing up right at the end. So to me, that kind of doesn't highlight, a better recruitment this year because we're not seeing – the production to the potential it should be. Brian, do you agree? Do you disagree?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the one thing that has been difficult to get Arfield or any of these new signings kind of out there is Latanzio is very bullish on playing Bronico no matter what. Like, and that's just what it is, right? That's what it is. It's just like,
bro, we could have prime Xavi, Iniesta, and Busquets in our team, and we'll probably still see Brent.
And it's not a fault against.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, and it's not a fault against Brant. Like Brant obviously grinds, works hard. Latanzio respects that, and so it's just been hard for him to get that train changed at all, and he's just moving on to anybody else. And I think that's where really, honestly, why Arfield doesn't get the starts, like because that's the like for like change that would be. I feel like it would be the Arfield for Bronico. So, I mean, I feel that's the main difference. Is just Latanzio's like he's Bronico through and through, and that's his guy.
Yeah, and also don't forget we have at Crown Legacy Petkovic. I mean, these guys paid $3 million for Petkovic, right? Outside of what? He's our third highest signing behind Carroll and Enzo, right? If I'm correct.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, that's the guy that they should be molding. Why? I mean, I know he's had some injuries, but I mean, you should be getting him into that first squad sooner than later, correct? And so with 5 games to go, right? It's a lot. Yo, the comment section.
Yeah, I was trying to listen to your question coming, and I couldn't because that guy's froze.
Yo, you guys are hilarious, man. One thing about Charlotte FC is we've got the best fans out there. Awesome. Let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about New England Revolution. The first team that we played in the season here at the bank, right, with another record attendance for us, second highest we've ever had, right? We lost that match. New England, is having a season of their own. Bruce Arena got fired. No idea what happened. Nobody wants to talk. Their front office is shady, right? Not really saying what's going on, right? It's kind of, it reminds me of, when Zoran came out last year, he said he didn't want to speculate, right? And so it's giving me speculation FC-esque vibes, right? So, Brian, what can we expect from Charlotte against New England?
Man, I mean, yeah, we're honestly catching New England at the right time, which I don't know what that means for Charlotte, because this whole New England is catching Charlotte at the right time, which I feel like this has kind of been an ongoing thing. Charlotte catches teams at the right time, but they're also struggling. New England hasn't won in 4 straight, and they've only won once since the end of Leagues Cup. So they've had this issue with the Bruce Arena resignation. At one point, players were reportedly refusing to train. They're all still playing. Like you still see Carlos Hill out there, Nacho Hill, all the guys are out there playing. So they're still they still clinched for the playoffs this last week in a 2-2 draw against Chicago. But during those 4-game stretch, they played Austin, Chicago, Minnesota, and Colorado and couldn't get one win. Like those are 4 terrible teams, and so they couldn't get one win there. So honestly, we're catching New England at the right time. It's just, they have Carlos Hill.
The thing, though, is you could turn around and say teams catch us at the right time. Look at Colorado, right? Had scored 3 goals at the beginning of the season. Then we got caught at the right time. Yeah. David knows exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. David, talk to me about what you want to see from this team in New England.
I want to see us close out the match. I want us to put up a performance like we have been, but actually close this match out. And one thing in specific that I want to see. One thing I want to see in particular this game is, our corners, our corners. I want us to be more clinical in our corners. We have a total of 115 corners this season. You know how many goals we scored from corners this season?
1.
None.
Yeah.
You know, the last time we scored from a corner kick was last season, Jordi Alcivar against Atlanta at home, the Olympico.
Really?
That's the last time we scored from a corner.
Dang,
this
that's a
season
great
we
stat.
have 115 corners, no goals. That is many, many wasted opportunities that we could get, that we could close out a match, but we're not clinical on set pieces. On the contrary, we're very liable to get scored on set pieces.
That's crazy. What a stat, man. That's a very, very depressing stat, right? One, a lot of last year what we blamed was the people taking the corners were terrible. This year they've improved, right? But still, we're not effective, right? Set pieces is something that maybe we still need to continue to improve on, right?
My thing is, if we're not taking advantage of those corners, which are crosses, imagine how many crosses total we've missed throughout the season, this season.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Crown Breakdown makes a great point here. It's a lot too about fixing the crosses, right? And those crosses are coming from what? Players that aren't natural wingers, right?
Yeah, but how many times have you seen other teams? It's just easy. Like a corner kicks, you don't expect a goal every time, but every now and then you get a goal. Your center backs go up there, they make a run in, and drive one in home. You know what I mean? We haven't seen any of that from any of our center backs. Derek Jones, a good example. He should be in there winning headers, but he don't.
Yeah, I agree. And we really don't have, or hasn't been played consistently enough, a target man like Ajimang, right? Who's tall, who can get on the end of some of those crosses, right?
True. I agree.
Someone's debunking your stat. Carter's goal against LAFC was a corner from Justin Merrill.
I don't think so.
Dang.
No, I don't think so.
I'm not sure.
Dang, bro, that's 2 goals. David, why you coming out here lying to us, man?
We're gonna have to check that one, bro.
Someone just did a VAR check on you. Oh, nice. In terms of, let's talk about a starting lineup for this weekend, right? Who do you guys want to see specifically? Who do you guys, and I want to hear from everybody in the comments section as well, right? Who is a player that has not started that we need to see off the bench from the get-go this map? And I'll start off with you, David.
For me, probably Vargas, man. I feel like he's somebody that's been underplayed this season, somebody who does make an impact, but unfortunately hasn't made an impact like we want to see. But for me, it should be Vargas.
Vargas. I like that. A player with a little bit of flair. Bench everybody, play Crown Legacy. This is good too. Brian?
I would go with Ajiman. I really would. I think I would go with Ajiman at this point. We've got 5 games left. I want to see what he's got. We're on the long shot looking in at getting into the playoffs. But I would say, like, at this point, honestly, like, is he that much less likely to get a goal than Capetti or Swiderski? Like, I mean, the last game, Swiderski and Capetti combined for 1 shot and 1 key pass. Like, so, and like, granted, against Philadelphia, they combined for 5 shots and 4 key passes. So when they're on, they're on, and when they're off,
they're both
off. That's why they were off after 60 minutes, right? So, but I just don't know if Patrick Ajiman is like guaranteed to be like that much less likely to get the goal production that we need, and he's the future. Whereas, like, clearly we've gotten reports from especially Swiderski, he's like kind of done. So I would like to see what our next year looks like and see if we can bring that next year in now to finish off this season.
Yeah, which, I mean, it kind of sucks that we have to talk about it like this when we still have a shot of making playoffs, but the problem is none of us believe.
Yeah.
You know, like, we have hope, right? That maybe they do something, but none of us truly believe that this team can do it, right? And I agree with you.
I wouldn't say it if it wasn't Swiderski made his own comments to him. Like, he made these right? If Swiderski doesn't go public, I'm probably not saying what I'm saying now, right? But like, he said those things. It seems like it's a 180 switch. So like, I feel like that then drives me to make that 180 switch. I'd rather see the guy who's here, like the Charlotte FC guy.
That's a good point. I don't know. I would still play Swiderski, right? Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, right? He scored. He was upset when we drew 2-2, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that shows that at least he still cares. Like,
True.
While I'm here, let me try, right? So
yeah.
To me, that's
True.
That's something
fair. That's
versus
fair.
Him looking uninterested all the time. But I agree. I would bench Enzo. Get my man Ajiman at that 9. Let's see what he's got. And I would also start Scott over Brandt, right? Yeah. Bro, just go for it this game. Yeah. We don't care. Just go for it, right? We haven't won. We've won 2 out of the last 15, right? So at this point, just go for it, right? He said we have 7. It's a mini World Cup right now, right? We're in last place in that World Cup draw group. We have 1 point, right? Out of those 2 games, right, we have 1 point. Yeah. And we need this win to try to finish second and go on to that mini series playoffs. Because if we lose, it's kind of done, right? The beauty of right now is that we're still in MLS, right? And you just have to be mid to make playoffs. And we're not even mid. That's what annoys me the most. We're not even freaking mid, right? And so we'll see, right? I would love to see those 2 changes. You're right. I mean, obviously, like, Enzo, I feel like he's gotten enough opportunities to show me that, he's R9. And you know what? To be fair, the game against Philly, I think he played well. This weekend, just like everybody else, just wasn't good enough. All right, we'll answer this really quickly. Who's been your player of the season so far? I mean, I feel like there's really not a lot to go off of.
No. I don't feel like we can really answer that question.
Own goal.
I feel like you can vote for like a moment of the season, but you can't vote for a player of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, the best moment I feel like was during that Leagues Cup stretch, and what Nathan Byrne was doing during that Leagues Cup stretch was one of the best like stretches of any specific player. Like I really feel like if a player stood out during any stretch of the season, it might have been Nathan Byrne during Leagues Cup for me, just in terms of like what he showed. But I don't know, man. It's tough. It hasn't been good enough from a lot of these guys to warrant like a Player of the Year nomination yet. They have 5 games to stand out and really finish this thing, but it's tough.
For sure, bro.
Let's put it on that list.
Go sign Rios for a short-term contract again and have him score 5 or 6 goals for us. You know? Someone can't bring him up yet. I want to answer this about Petkovic. You can sign players up for like a short-term deal up to 4 appearances, I think it is.
Yep.
We got 5 games left, right? 4 wouldn't be bad. Although I don't know what the cap is for how many players you can bring up. I know we brought up Poreba. Is there anybody else that you can think of that's gotten that short-term contract up to the first?
I don't think, because all the other players have been the draft picks and like Brandon Cambridge was a signing. They were technically on the 30-man roster already, so they don't count towards those short-term contracts. I think it's just Barrebo so far.
Yeah. And see, this is annoying too that like, bro, Sporting KC started terrible and they've picked it up.
Portland too. Portland just switched their coach and they haven't lost since they switched coaches.
That's what I'm saying, bro. All we needed 3 wins on the bounce, and we would be good right now.
Yeah,
we would be very hopeful and very optimistic.
If they get a point from New England, they have 2+ matchups coming up before the Miami ones. I mean, Toronto and Chicago. Like, if they can get 6 or 7 points out of the next 3, I mean, we're having a different conversation going into Miami. It's still brutal, but it's a different conversation.
It is. And, like, we've blinked, and Miami's a point behind us now.
Yeah.
You know?
Without Messi half the time.
Exactly. That's what's annoying, too. Without Messi half the time, we blinked, and they're right there. Right?
That's true.
All right, let's talk a little bit about some score predictions. And I want to hear from everybody in the comment section. I know y'all love this team. I know everybody's going to be optimistic and say that we're going to win in New England and bring it back. So I want to see those comments. Brian, I'll start off with you.
Man, I would love to be optimistic in this situation. And they are, like I said, I mean, I don't think they're anywhere near as strong as Cincy right now. So I don't think we're going to get completely cleaned up like we just did this last weekend, but it's going to be a tough one. I'm going to say they lose 2-1.
2-1 L. Who scores the goal?
Patrick Ajman. I'm just going to go all the way in. I'm going all the way in tonight, dude.
David, you've been throwing stuff around. You've had balloons come out of nowhere.
I'm going to try it again.
What do you see this weekend?
2-2, man. Draw FC, baby.
Nice. Who scores the goals for you?
I think Bronico's been getting up there, creating chances. So I'm gonna give one to Bronico, and hopefully Enzo Copetti gets on the score sheet. Man, he needs to get on that score sheet.
Nice. I like it. I'm gonna be optimistic and say we're gonna win 3-0.
Ooh,
Nice.
that's bold.
2
That's
Carroll
bold right
goals. 2 Carroll Swiderski goals and a Scott Arfield goal.
I like that. I like that.
You know, I want to end the season at least with some hope, you know, instead of depression FC. You know, unfortunately, that's more of a wish than it is actually a reality. But like Latanzio said, you know, we haven't really lost to these teams. We haven't won, but we haven't lost either to a lot of teams. So we'll see what happens, right? But I'm going to say 3-0 Charlotte. Why are you guys like this? I'm not smoking anything. Let me believe. If we don't win, Jorge owes me some gel hair. I got you.
Bro, you know what I think is hilarious? They give you stick.
Listen,
when you think
we are
we're
watching
lose.
the same game.
Bro, they give George stick for thinking we're gonna win, and then they give him stick.
I know, dog. Like, come on, bro. Like, if I was negative, I'm gonna be optimistic this game and say we're gonna win. Right. Also, a shout out to Crown Legacy, finishing with the joint point tally as Colorado Rapids 2. First season in, they almost clinched the quote unquote supporter shield for MLS Next Pro, right? I mean, the team's going great. They have a bye the first week of playoffs. Hopefully, they win that title. You know, it would be a little something great for, I guess, the fan base, right? If at least our second team does well, right? So, with that said, Brian, my man, where can we find you?
Yeah, y'all can find me on Twitter at Bam Hour Media. You can also find all my written content at topin90.com. And shout out to Sam Vanalinda, who's been absolutely killing it for us. He's got 4 articles out in this last week for Top in 90. He's making me need to step my game up. So
Yo, Sam is the man. Yeah, he's been doing great. David, where can we find you at?
You can catch me at CLTFC Yeti Clan on Instagram and on YouTube. We got some stuff coming for y'all very soon. We drop content almost every day. So if you just want to follow the page, keep up what we're doing. We like to do stuff about the team, memes, little stuff here and there. But you know where to find us. CLTFC Yeti Clan is right here below. So
for sure. I'm going to answer this question real quickly before we head out. Playoffs for MLS Next Pro start this weekend, the 29th. But Crown Legacy have a bye. So they won't be playing. But with that said, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know we switched it up on you guys, and we wanted to do some Monday Night Football for everybody. You know where to find us at Top Bin 90. We got more articles coming out, more fun stuff, more times for the club to get angry at us. But we'll be here. You guys have a good night. Good.